So, Merry Christmas from the true eccentric man. Catch you in the new year, I would hazard a guess. So have a happy new year, and once again, Merry Christmas. Well, a Christmas greetings from the eccentric man. A little cruel seas action again. Just trying to get our head around how the game plays, and we decided to have a multiplayer game at Lost Ark Games in Stevenage, and the number of people, we had 3 aside to start with, and of those, 4 of those hadn't played before, so it was just to get the people playing and to give them some idea of how it was going to work. So, what were we using? Well, in this one, the store owner, Steve, had got out the British fleet and also a German fleet. And one of the guys who turned up also had the British fleet, so we were able to sort out different ships, and the British were able to put forward a couple of Vospers, a few Vospers, I think there's 4 Vospers there, and 2 of the Fairmiles, the armed trawler, and the tanker. And that was the ships running for the British. I think there's a minesweeper there, but we didn't actually go with that in the end. We went with the tanker. So that was what we went with, and divvied the ships up between us. And I had control of a few Vospers. And let's proceed and see what the Germans had to go against it. Well, the Germans, they were running a pack of S-boats, and there was a mix between the S-100s and the S-38s. So they divided them between the 3 of them, and that's what was going to face off against the British ships. We were playing on a 6x4 table with an island in the middle, and you can have a look at the island. We did stick the lighthouse on it, but we hadn't had a chance to paint the lighthouse at that stage. I thought I'd stick the minesweeper next to the island with the lighthouse just to give it some idea of scale. Yeah, we've looking at terrain, and I've seen a miniature company, 11 Miniatures, and they do a harbour and they do some buildings and a lighthouse. So I've put in an order for those, so that'll be interesting. And I've seen some people using some Games Workshop 40k craters, and I've got a few of those hidden away somewhere, and I can use those as islands, filling in the middle and then doing the beach and putting buildings on top, so we shall see how they look. Doing a rough points add up, I think the Germans had somewhere in the region of about 850 points, and the British again had around 800 points of ships. So relatively balanced out within it. So first off, in the first turn, the British were slowly trying to get away from the corner and trying to get the ships some space to manoeuvre. The trawler had a maximum speed of, I think, 12 centimetres. And the tanker, I don't think, was very much better than that. I think that probably had about 15 or 16 speed. So within the cruel seas, 1 centimetre equals sort of less 1 kilometre, 1 knot, something more or less. So the Fairmiles did 30, and the Vospers were about 39 centimetre move. So the British were just trying to get out of the corner. Germans, on the other hand, were a little bit quicker off the mark, and straight away launched some long-range torpedoes towards the British. And the Germans, the torpedoes run 3 turns for 40 centimetres, so there's quite a bit of distance in them firing. Remember, in cruel seas, the small ships, so small and medium, the shallow draft ships can't be hit by torpedoes. It's only the larger ships. So the larger ships on the board were the trawler and the tanker that the British had were trying to get across. That was an interesting point with the speed of the tanker and the trawler. It's a 6 foot by 6 by 4 board, which is something like a region of 180 centimetres by 148, something like that. So it was going to take some time to get them across. So with the first round out of the way, we went into the second round, and the S-boats chased their torpedoes across the table and fired a few more off towards the British. And really, the British were just trying to reply by moving out of that corner position. It was a bit of a bottleneck, really. Yes, for us British players, it was certainly a learning experience with the tanker and the trawler. They are very slow when you compare it to the other ships, particularly the S-boats, who could travel somewhere in the region of 42 centimetres a turn. I think it was around about 42, was it? 20, so it was 14, 28, yeah, 42. So it's pretty fast. Can that be right? I'm going to have to look at the maths for torpedoes, because that means that the S-boat would have been flying, if they were going full speed, they'd be on one another. But anyway, we'll have to work that out. As you can see, the British ships are just trying to starburst out from the corner. So you can see some of them up there. There's a fair mile and 2 Vospers. You can see that there's a water plume. One of the Vospers has been taken a shot at. So in this next one, you can see that the S-boats have come up a bit closer. 2 S-boats are going off behind the island, and I'm sort of trying to cover those with the Vosper and the Fairmile on this side. You can see that the torpedoes are still running ahead of the S-boats towards the tanker and the trawler. Some of the ones that were fired from the far range, you could tell that they weren't gonna hit. So because there was only shallow draft ships, we took some of those off. But the other torpedoes, there were some making their way still towards the tanker and the trawler. Well, as you can see in this photo, the action is getting a lot more heated. The S-boats are closing up on the British fleet, and you can see some more torpedoes have been fired, and they're not too far away from the tanker and the trawler. The ships, you can see up there on the top right, a couple of shots taken by the Fairmile and the Vosper, putting a few plumes on, and you can see here that on the left, one of the Vospers has been destroyed, one of the Fairmiles has taken some shots, and there's some plumes around them, and then you can see the one E-boat has been knocked out, and that was a little bit of a problem, and it's a good learning point for playing cruel seas. Orphan torpedoes. Normally torpedoes are fired and then they are moved when the activation dice comes out for that boat. However, if you knock out the boat, the torpedoes become orphan torpedoes and they go first in the turn. And that was going to prove a problem for our British ships, because the torpedoes were fairly close. So a little bit more action on this one. You can see that the British ships are trying to move around to take on those 2 S-boats coming round from the right of the island, and on the left just a little bit more views of the S-boats and the Fairmile. So yes, the S-boats were taking their toll on the British Vospers. The British Vospers have not got very many hull points, and they were finding it hard going against the S-boats. The Fairmiles were a bit easier, but not a bit easier. The Fairmiles are a bit stronger, but they are slower to get into position. So, in my enthusiasm to take out an S-boat, which I did, it meant that the torpedoes became orphaned, and two of them were able to roll straight away at the beginning of the turn and collide with the tanker. The third torpedo was from the first grey dice out, which was the Germans, and that hit the trawler. Our ploy was to try and get the trawler in front of the tanker to take any of the torpedoes. Too slow, just too slow, really. And that was one of the big learning things, that the large ships that we had here are very slow. This is where we did make a mistake with the torpedoes. What you need to do is you need to work out whether the torpedoes hit, and then that's on a base of 4. So then if it's a large ship, it goes up +2. So the Germans were rolling on a 6+. So that's to make it's a hit. Here you can see that the tanker is up in a plume of smoke and fire. And that's because the two torpedoes at D16 dice apiece make a big damage. However, what we failed to do was roll the dice to do a skill check to see if the German engineers had correctly armed the torpedoes, and a skill check is on a 4+. We did forget that, so it was like the torpedoes hit and then they fired. So what it would have been, or should have been, would be a 50-50 chance that they work or if they don't. However, the 2 torpedoes took out the tanker, and the 1 torpedo took out a load of hull points for the trawler and left it on about 1 hull point, just hanging there. So as you can see, a couple more torpedoes flying in towards the armed trawler, and a few more ships blowing up. Unfortunately, British ships, and you can see there that there's excuse me, 2 Vospers and one of the Fairmiles that are now blown up for the loss of 1 S-boat. What had happened was, because the S-boats come up so close, there were a couple of collisions, and the collisions really do damage as well. So you look on a cross-reference chart, and the first ship that hits is counted as the attacker, and in this case a small ship like the Vosper has 3d6, and it hits the S-boat and does 3d6 damage. There's no criticals within that, it's just that's the damage. And then the S-boat rolls as if that's the attacker, and they roll 4d6, and that gives you the number of hits. So it just works out on the table, and you've got to be very careful, because there is a lot of intercollisions when you're so close together, moving so fast. Final shot here is looking at the far side, and the Fairmile and the Vosper came quite close to taking out one of the S-38s here. Very close indeed. But yeah, a big game with all the players that we had. Took a little bit of time, but everybody enjoyed themselves, and there is some fun in this game. It is quite good. Yeah, certainly the players who hadn't played this before, they really enjoyed themselves, and we're getting into moving the ships, looking at where the torpedoes were going to go and how they were going to work. Yep, good fun had by all. So now we're really starting to think about, okay, then how can we enhance the game and look at, how we can enhance the game and get some terrain. So perhaps a little bit of coastal round one side, and the islands, a couple of islands, and looking at scenarios to see how we can play the game and sort of take it forward. So yeah, a lot to think about in the game. It's a quick fun game. moving the ships about, taking the shots, brutal at close range with the ships and the number of guns that they've got. But you've got to be careful with the speeds that you're doing and the turns that you're doing and how close you are to the other ships. So, hope you enjoyed it. Certainly key things in it to think about. Certainly the speed of some of the larger ships. How are you going to work them, how are you going to protect them, how are you going to keep them safe is a tricky one. Certainly if you've got an objective of getting them anywhere, they don't go very fast. So we're going to have a look at the board size and the ship speed, just to think, are the large ships a little bit too slow for the size board, the 6x4 that we're playing on. So we'll have to have a think about that and see how that works. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video, and give it a tick, give it a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't. There's going to be more along in the pipeline, and I think I'll do a little teaser of the 1,000 subscriber giveaway that I'm planning to do. We're at 936 subscribers, so it's getting there. So I'll leave a little video, not a little video, a couple of photos of the giveaway, just as a teaser.